In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the European model and the GFS model. No big surprise there. We're going to be taking a look at the transition from winter to spring-like conditions as we're really looking to take that big step here over the next 10 to 15 days. Still, there will be cold air at times and there will be warmer air at times than we've seen all winter long, with 70s and 80s being possible at certain points for certain areas. Definitely a very interesting transition we're going to take into a flip-floppy early spring pattern. Let's dive into things, and we're taking a look at tomorrow afternoon first things first. This is going to be for Thursday, February 22nd, and what we end up seeing is some storms developing across some of the south central states up into the Ohio Valley and even the eastern states. You can see that we do have a low located over Ohio right there. That is a big time player in all of this, and really most of the workhorse behind this storm for the most part. What we will see happen is by Friday, we're going to see this is going to transition into a very strong cold front. So we have a 996 here, 990 there, and 1005. So in general, how you can look at it is there's a lot of low pressure in this entire eastern area of the United States and some of Canada as well. And the strongest primary low is going to be this northernmost one, with the secondary low being here and then kind of just an additional low at the very bottom. And oftentimes we see kind of just a cold front develop along all of this, even though there's low pressure every step of the way. For the most part, this is a cold front. And this is pulling that cold air down from Canada, and it's funneling in behind this frontal boundary right there. What we end up seeing is some snowfall, even moderate to heavy in some spots here for the northeast, and thunderstorm possibilities across some of the southeast, and a lot of showery activity in between those areas. By the time we reach Saturday afternoon, we have an interesting setup where we have warmer air and higher pressure developing along this kind of southwest region of the states. Cold air still funneled here into the eastern states, and some snowfall possibilities here across the deeper southeast, especially here along the Smoky Mountains, where obviously the high elevation is going to come into play and be a favor in the direction of snowfall. But rainfall seems mostly likely in the lower elevations, but there is some possibility for some flakes to fly in those even lower elevation and coastal areas, as temperatures will be cold enough. For Sunday on the 25th of February, remember this is a big transition day that we've been watching. We see warm air beginning to really want to intrude northward here, where we do have still some cold air set up. That is going to be a battle that is going to end in the favor of warm air eventually. Also keep in mind, watch for storminess and cold returning to the west as we have a downward trend in the temperatures. That is going to be also a driving force behind all of this. And already by the time we reach Monday on the 26th, we see all of this coming into motion. Storms and cold returning to the west. We see heavy snowfall for the Cascades, Sierra Nevada, and the Northern Rockies there by Monday the 26th. Very interesting, very active pattern out there that's very cold. Meanwhile, I mean, this is really a negative PNA, which stands for Pacific North American Oscillation. We see that mostly in the northwest here. And this cold air mass is allowing for all of this warm air to really enter into the east. If there's cold air in the west, what's going to happen is we see colder than normal air dipping far southward, and all of this warm air that would have been in these areas is basically going to move eastward of this, trying to avoid that cold air, that low pressure. This higher pressure and warmer air is going to really transition in eastward. So we continue to see this 26th, 27th, it's really in motion. We can see the jet stream is doing something along these lines here. So what we see is a massive trough out west and a ridge that is really extending northward over the central and the eastern states here. Snowy conditions along the Rockies and into the northern plains there on the eastern flank there of that trough. And as we move towards Wednesday, what we see is another cold front system developing. We have a 993 way up here in northern Canada. We have a 9 something, let's see. Likely a 991 millibar low pressure center near Chicago right here. And this is causing a cold front underneath, warm front here to the east of it. So we see more intense warmth and humidity here in the east on the 28th. A snowstorm happening for the Midwest here into some of the Great Lakes. And we have strong thunderstorm activity happening along this cold front area. So for states like Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Missouri here, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, we're going to be watching for that activity. And by the time we reach Thursday afternoon, what we see is that this is reaching the East Coast, a 989 millibar low pressure center now way up in Canada, and a cold front stretching down the eastern states, allowing for cold for the moment to enter into the east. I know we called for a warmer pattern in the east. We do get a brief cool down here, but when you take a look at the 25th through the 15th or so of March, I strongly believe that we're going to deal with warmer than normal conditions in the east overall, with colder and stormier conditions out west. That is my current thinking here. Let's keep going, and by the time we're reaching Friday afternoon, that cold front has passed through. We have colder air sitting over the east, and then we have this storm system wanting to move on shore to the west, which might just take us back full circle. And already by the 2nd, what we see happening is colder air and storminess is already intruding the northwest. It's likely going to spread to the entire west around this time frame. And this warm air is going to do the same thing it did before, where it's going to move into the east and really take over. We'll end up likely with a jet stream, something like this. Colder out in the northwest, warmer out here in the east is currently what I expect after this point. Let's take a look at what the GFS model has to say. Want to take us all the way to about the 28th here. We get that same cold front for the east. Some snowfall even mixing in on the back end for a lot of areas, that colder air. But look at what happens immediately after. We get a trough and cold air developing out here for the west. And overall, not severely warm, but we do have warmer than normal conditions here across the central and eastern states. Meanwhile, that cold air is dipping southward for the west. As we keep going, we see this kind of pattern continue. As we take a look at the 8th of March, we still have a trough with storminess in the west with a big ridge in the east. So again, rising warmth through the central and eastern states. And then those snowfall conditions as well as colder air overall out west all the way at the end of the model run here. As we take a look at the total precipitation, tons and tons of activity out west, inches and inches of total precipitation. We do get quite a bit of activity here across a lot of the east for kind of the Ohio Valley, the Great Lakes here, kind of the deeper south and into the interior eastern states. And overall near normal to above normal precipitation for mostly the entire eastern state. So despite the warmer pattern, we still deal with quite a bit of moisture. And I think a lot of this is going to come from those thunderstorm or even severe weather events that are ahead here for the next 10 to 15 days. Total snowfall in the European model shows the story here. A ton of snowfall out west. Some here for the plains into the upper Midwest and Great Lakes. A little bit here for the Northeast, but where is the snow and where's the snow not? The snow is clearly in the west here, and clearly there is no snow here in a majority of the east. So we're taking a look at something like this. That is the clear picture here. Same story on the GFS. I mean, tons of snow out west. Clearly, this is where the snow is at. They get a big fat check mark for that. And really, even with a few inches in a couple spots, outside of the Northeast here, the entire eastern half of the nation is dealing with very, very minimal amounts of snowfall. Again, the Northeast does pretty well here on this model run, but outside of that, we're not seeing any large amounts whatsoever. Let's take a look at the total kind of just temperature pattern here on that European ensemble model. We see this warm up starting, a cool down coming in, but after the 25th, here's what we get: severely above normal temperatures. And let me express that to its fullest extent, I would say. These kind of yellows and oranges and reds in here is going to be anywhere from 1 to perhaps 10 degrees above normal. These browns in here for a majority of the east here is going to be 15 to 30 degrees above normal. And some of these reds within the browns here for Canada is going to be 30 or more degrees above normal, pushing upwards of 35 degrees above normal there in eastern Canada. So this warm up is no joke. Let's keep going. That's when we can expect potential 70s and 80s for some spots, by the way, so keep that in mind. We get a brief cool down around the 1st and 2nd of March, but followed up by another severe warm up. Again, those browns making an appearance. Also a severe cool down out west, as these greens indicate 10 to 15 degrees below normal. These reds and browns in here indicate 10 to even 20 degrees above normal. So definitely the colder temperatures are in the west. The warmer temperatures are in the east here. No real debate about that. That is my current thinking. And it's as we reach the end of the model run around the 7th where we see some potential cold getting reintroduced to the east, but that would take us all the way from the about this 22nd here. Actually, there's a majority warmth between the 22nd here of February starting tomorrow all the way through the 7th of March until we get our next little cold air mass. So we're talking about potentially about 10 to 15 days of overall warmth here. Definitely a substantial move towards an early spring-like pattern, pushing us much more towards late March to early April temperatures, as opposed to these late February, early March temperatures, is much more in line of what you can expect things to feel like. Very, very interesting stuff. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload, so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.